It all started on a quiet Thursday morning, the kind of calm that always comes right before a storm. Our neighborhood looked peaceful from the outside, but anyone who lived here knew the truth. The HOA board, especially its president Karen, treated the community like her personal kingdom. My wife Sarah had just come home after a long night shift. Of course, nobody here knew her real job. To them, she was just another homeowner, but in reality, she was the county sheriff, the highest-ranking law enforcement officer in our district. We kept it private for one reason: peace. Trust me, the last thing Sarah wanted after 12 hours of duty was HOA drama. But Karen lived for drama. That morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when Sarah walked in, exhausted, removing her boots. "You survived another night," I teased. She smirked. "Barely. Drunk drivers everywhere last night." Just as she sat down, we heard it. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Someone pressing the doorbell repeatedly like their life depended on it. I sighed. Only one person rings the bell like that. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. Karen?" "Exactly." I opened the door, and, yes, there she was, clipboard in hand, expression loaded with attitude. "Your wife's car," she said without greeting, "was parked 2 inches over the driveway line. Again." I blinked. 2 inches? "Yes," she snapped. "This is a violation. I already documented it." Before I could even respond, she leaned to the side, trying to see inside our house, like she owned the place. "And where is your wife? I need to speak with her." Sarah stepped up behind me, calm but tired. "Is everything okay?" Karen gave her a dramatic glare. "I have issued you a formal notice. You must sign it." Sarah smiled politely. "I just got off work. Can it wait?" "No," Karen barked. "Rules are rules." I felt Sarah tense slightly. She hated being disrespected, but she also didn't want to pull rank. She simply said, "I'll look into it once I rest." Karen's jaw dropped, like she'd been personally attacked. "Excuse me, are you refusing to comply with the HOA?" Before Sarah could answer, Karen shoved the paper against her chest. "Sign it, now." Sarah stepped back, keeping her cool. "I'm not signing anything while I'm half asleep. Please leave." Karen gasped loudly, like Sarah had committed a crime. "This is insubordination. You can't talk to an HOA officer like that. I will take action." And she stormed off, marching down the driveway like she was leading a parade only she cared about. Sarah exhaled. "I swear, one day she's going to push the wrong person." I didn't know then, but that wrong person was going to be Sarah herself. 3 hours later, Sarah was asleep, and I was in the living room working when I heard the sound of car doors slamming. Multiple doors. Not HOA, not neighbors. These were police vehicles. I went outside, and my jaw dropped. 2 patrol cars were parking right in front of our house. The officers stepped out with serious expressions. One of them asked loudly, "Is Sarah Miller inside?" My heart skipped. "Yes. Is something wrong?" Before they could answer, guess who emerged from behind them? Karen, hands on hips, smiling triumphantly. This was her moment. "I called them," she announced proudly. "Your wife refused to cooperate with the HOA. She was aggressive and confrontational. I suspect she may be a danger." "A danger? Sarah? The same woman who rescues kittens from under porches?" The officers approached carefully. "Sir, we need your wife to step outside." I rushed inside to wake her. "Sarah, you need to come out. Cops are here." She groaned, thinking I was joking. When she saw the officers through the window, she stood still for a moment. Then, her entire posture changed. Not sleepy and annoyed. Officer mode, calm, professional, alert. She stepped outside, and Karen immediately began shouting over everyone. "That's her! Arrest her! She refused HOA orders and was threatening me." Sarah stared at her like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. One officer spoke gently. "Ma'am, we received a report that you were being aggressive with the HOA president." Sarah blinked slowly, then quietly said, "Officer, what exactly were the charges?" Karen jumped in. "Non-compliance, intimidation, disrespect." But the officer held up a hand to stop her. Sarah pulled out her wallet, opened it, and showed her badge. There was dead silence. The officer's eyes widened. "You're Sheriff Miller?" Karen froze. Her face turned pale. Sarah nodded calmly. "Yes. And you just got called out here because someone didn't like being told to wait." The officers exchanged embarrassed glances. Karen tried to recover. I didn't know. She didn't tell me." Sarah crossed her arms. "I don't have to tell you my occupation. And filing false reports. That is a crime." Karen actually took a step back. The officer turned to her slowly. "Ma'am, we need to talk." And that was the moment Karen realized she had messed with the wrong woman. The officers stood frozen, trying to decide how to react now that the woman they were called to control was actually their superior. Karen, meanwhile, was shaking so badly you could almost hear her teeth clicking. Sarah didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The calm authority in her tone carried more weight than any shouting could. "Let's clarify something," she said quietly. "You filed a complaint stating that I threatened you." Karen swallowed hard. I felt unsafe. You refused to sign the notice." Sarah tilted her head. "Not signing a paper when I'm exhausted is not a threat. And calling law enforcement for a personal grudge? That's misuse of emergency resources." One of the officers cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we need to document this properly." Karen looked between them, suddenly realizing they weren't supporting her. Wait, no, I'm the HOA president. I have authority." Sarah smiled in a way that wasn't really a smile. "HOA isn't above the law, Karen." The officer closest to her stepped forward. "President or not, filing a false report can carry real consequences, especially when it sends 2 units to someone's home without cause." Karen's eyes widened. "Consequences? No, this is a misunderstanding. I was only enforcing community standards." Sarah crossed her arms. "You banged on my door early in the morning, demanded signatures, and then when I asked you to come back later, you decided to weaponize the police. That isn't enforcing rules. That's harassment." The other officer took out his notepad. "We need to take a statement from both sides." Karen looked like she was about to faint. She turned to me desperately. Tell them she was rude." I shrugged. "She asked you politely to leave." Karen gasped, like that was the betrayal of the century. The officers guided her to the sidewalk to talk privately. Sarah turned to me. "Go inside," she said softly. "I've got this." I knew that tone sheriff mode. Calm, steady, unshakable. So I nodded and stepped back inside, watching from the window. The discussion outside lasted a long time. Karen kept talking fast, waving her arms, pointing at our house, pointing at Sarah, pointing at the driveway like it held the secrets of the universe. The officers listened and grew more unimpressed by the minute. Finally, they returned toward Sarah. "Sheriff Miller," one officer said respectfully, "we're issuing her a formal warning for misuse of emergency services. We'll file the report today." Karen nearly collapsed. "A formal warning? You can't. That'll go on record." Sarah's voice was calm. "You brought this on yourself." "And," the other officer added, We recommend you cease direct contact with the Millers unless it is official HOA business sent in writing. No more confrontations at the door. The shock on Karen's face was almost cartoonish. So she's getting protected because she's a sheriff? That's favoritism. No, Sarah replied firmly. That's called boundaries. The officers thanked Sarah and left. Karen stayed frozen, mentally buffering like a broken computer. Then, without another word, she stormed down the sidewalk toward her house, shaking with rage. You'd think that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, Sarah and I found an envelope stuck to our door. HOA violation notice, failure to maintain proper lawn height. Our lawn was trimmed 2 days ago. Sarah took a deep breath. All right, she wants war. Before she could act, our neighbor, Mr. Lopez, jogged over. I saw her do it, he whispered. She was out here in the dark with a flashlight, measuring your grass like a mad woman. I sighed. Why is she like this? Lopez shrugged. Power makes some people weird. Sarah held the notice between her fingers, then walked straight toward the HOA office. Karen was inside, pretending to rearrange files. When she saw Sarah, she stiffened. You can't just walk in here, she snapped. This is for board members only. Sarah placed the violation notice on her desk gently. Karen, this stops now. Karen scoffed. You don't tell me what to do. This is my neighborhood, my rules. Sarah leaned forward slightly. Actually, county regulations supersede HOA rules, and according to county code, retaliatory actions by HOA boards are illegal. Karen blinked. Retaliatory? It was a lawn violation. Our lawn is up to code, Sarah replied, and we both know you measured it yourself last night. For a second, Karen's mouth hung open. Sarah continued. The officers filed the report from yesterday. The county board will review your conduct. If more violations continue, it won't just be warnings. That's when Karen finally cracked. She slumped in her chair, face pale. I didn't know you were the sheriff, she whispered. You weren't supposed to, Sarah said softly. I came here to live quietly. You made that impossible. Karen stared at the desk. The board, they listened to me. If they find out I got in trouble, that's up to them, Sarah said, but this harassment ends today. And with that, she walked out. 2 weeks later, the news spread. Karen was suspended from the HOA board, pending investigation. The neighborhood breathed a sigh of relief. People actually came to our door to thank Sarah. One neighbor said, We were all scared of her. You finally did what none of us could. Sarah smiled. All I did was tell the truth. And just like that, peace returned. Real peace. Not the fake kind the HOA claimed to protect. But the best part? Karen still avoids eye contact every time she walks past our house. Because now she knows she picked the wrong fight, with the wrong woman on the wrong day.
All right, real talk. If you were in my shoes, what would you have said to HOA Karen? Or better yet, how would you deal with her? Drop your revenge ideas down in the comments. I gotta see how y'all would handle this mess.